Hello, GSX. Welcome and thank you for tuning into this presentation. I'm Fred Burton, the Executive Director of ONTIC's Center for Protective Intelligence. I hope you're enjoying the virtual conference so far. I've had the privilege of signing books and speaking at past GSX events. So what is ONTIC? We're the first and only protective intelligence software platform purpose-built for physical security. Our goal is to enable enterprise physical security teams to get the most relative intelligence faster for early threat detection in order to keep employees, facilities, and assets safe. For years, technology has played a role in transforming protection, and I'm glad to be able to share this evolution with you today. I thought I would kick off my presentation with a quote from one of my favorite authors, Frederick Forsyth, from The Day of the Jackal. His book still resonates today. This quote hung inside the Dignitary Protection Division at the State Department as a reminder of the need for vigilance. And I think it's important in our line of work to understand that. So I thought it would be appropriate to kick it off with this. And by the way, this book is still a darn good read. The Evolutionary Arc of Technology and Protection. I've been in this business since 1981, which gives me the benefit of a little bit of hindsight or looking back through the rearview mirror. So I thought we would begin with an incident that happened in 1963 that was really a game changer in the protective security and the protective intelligence space, and that's the assassination of John F. Kennedy at Dealey Plaza in Dallas. Like in all disasters, there's a tremendous amount of lessons learned that can be taken away. And as a result of this, certainly the Secret Service was able to create the Protective Intelligence Division, the Counter Sniper Team, look at how motorcade routes are evaluated, and just intelligence in general. But usually, in our business, like many of you know, these kinds of changes are predicated upon some sort of catastrophic failure. In 1981, I first learned of a plot to assassinate the president and cabinet-level officials when the FBI visited and showed us these grainy photographs of suspects that had been deployed from Eastern Europe in the Middle East to carry out the assassination. And they were put together with this fundamental identikit that I'm sure some of the older folks or graybeards in the crowd will recognize. The identikit. We had one in our office. Most homicide divisions have them too. And you were able to piece together, kind of like in a Mr. Potato Head world, pictures of individuals. Now, the individuals that had been deployed to attack high-ranking government officials were all on a Xerox copy, and we photocopied them, and we passed them out. We stuck them in our coat pockets, and we were on pins and needles looking for these individuals, predicated on what was our technology at the time in 1981. And I'm sure many of you will remember this wonderful tool for persons of interest. I think I still have a Polaroid like this in my closet. This was the staple for all of us doing interviews for individuals that walked in wanting to provide information, or for just detectives to take pictures of suspects. This was the tool of technology in the early 80s. And in 1987, we had a groundbreaking case involving an individual by the name of Edward Louis Gallo. This individual had spent hours studying the arrivals and the departures of the Secretary of State, and he had actually figured out where the Secretary lived and had driven by his house on midnights. And it got us thinking how was this guy able to do this without ever being seen? And some we never saw him coming. So that really got us thinking about the model. Is that traditional protective model one that is effective? So we looked at other ways of protecting people. We took a little information from how the intelligence community conducts surveillance. We looked at a non-traditional protection model with no fixed posts, mobile in bicycles and rental cars, And we were focusing on a time and distance variable, meaning if you saw that same person or vehicle over any kind of time and distance, we looked at it as possibly pre-operational surveillance. So we would set up on arrivals and departures, dressed down, plain clothes, trying to blend into the environment. So if we were in New York City, we would wear suits. If we were on the streets in some environments, we would be wearing like an army fatigue coat. It just really depends upon the environment that we were operating in. We were trying to blend in, looking for suspicious people or vehicles conducting pre-operational surveillance. We first started to deploy this heavily around Princess Diana in New York City. Now, what you see in this picture is your traditional protective bubble with some of my colleagues from the DSS, but what you don't see is our counter-surveillance assets around this protective bubble. And the thought being is we could identify persons that were coming into that bubble if we could get an early read on them. So we spent a lot of time with this, practicing it, deploying it, and working it around the British Royals, and it turned out to be a very effective model. And of course, the technology at the time was the old Sony Handycam. It weighed a ton. We put them on our shoulders. We would record arrivals and departures. Then at night, we would look at those pictures in our down rooms. We would print them off and we would pass them around to the protective agents or the advance agent and say, hey, if you see this person, please give Intel a shout and we'll swoop in to interview them. So this was our technology at the time. As a use case study, we were on the Gorbachev detail in San Francisco, and after taking pictures and videos, surveillance with a Sony of arrivals and departures, we identified a suspicious person. We were able to find that individual and took a knife off him ahead of an arrival of Gorbachev at an event. So that was an example of the kind of success we had in a counter-surveillance protective intelligence model. Then Mandela came, and as you can see from the protective agents around him, the difficulty of conducting any kind of counter-surveillance or protective intelligence with these kinds of crowds. So what we did is we certainly had counter-surveillance assets deployed, but we really focused on the intelligence aspect of this, meaning what could we learn from the FBI and the New York City Police Department on some of the white hate problems, the neo-Nazis, and people seemed to be coming out of the woodwork that hated him, and then we had thousands of well-wishers. Now, embedded in this crowd are counter-surveillance assets. We were leapfrogging ahead, we were looking at venues and arrivals, and we were trying to be that early warning indicator of problems before the protective detail ever got there. And then, of course, in 92 and 93, after the World Trade Center bombing, our world changed again when we learned of the New York City bombing plots. And this is where we found out that the cell in New York City, operated by Sheikh Omar Abdul Rahman, was heavily involved in pre-operational surveillance of State Department and Secret Service protective details. They had set up very sophisticated fixed post perches, for example, near the well at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. They had talked about different scenarios to include even attacking the cat car or the follow car upon arrival, killing all the agents, and then going after the protectee. In this case, would have been President Mubarak of Egypt. They also put together and formulated plans to try to infiltrate in through the hotel, which was certainly very alarming, dressed as staff. And in one scenario, in fact, they were going to steal a FedEx truck and park it in close proximity to our arrival points. And then the team was going to deploy out the back and carry out an assault on our motorcade when we arrived. So once again, predicated upon the intelligence, we had to adapt our model, and we started to be very aggressive with counter-surveillance, looking for pre-operational indicators and heavy on the intel collection aspect of that. In 1999, I left to go to the private sector, and bring this model to multinational corporations. And what I found in putting together this team was that this was perfect for the private sector because you could blend counter-surveillance assets around, for example, a CEO who really didn't want a heavy-handed protective team around them because that's viewed as bad for business at times. And I understand that. I get that. And this model was perfect for the protection of children of high net worth individuals, and blending in that intelligence analysis into that as well was just picture perfect for the private sector. After 9/11, obviously, millions of dollars were put into technology enhancements, from vehicle locators to personal locator beacons for children of high net worth individuals. The physical security upgrades in our post 9/11 world have simply been amazing from a technology perspective. And then good old fashioned basics such as smoke goods to buy you some time to get out of a building that's on fire or has been attacked. And then, of course, 2010 going forward, technology again takes off with travel trackers. And then the fusion centers put together to try to make sense of all these problems. And then the additions of facial recognition and license plate readers. And then this new world of drones, and what are we going to do about that? And how can we look for them? And what's an invasion of privacy with a drone? Going forward, the new frontier is the integration of intelligence to help you see around the corners. To me, this is the biggest challenge as I talk to corporations and executive protection and corporate security teams. How do we manage all this open source information that's now at our fingertips? And the solution is technology. And we've come a long way from the days of 3x5 index cards and typewriters, and a long, long way from identikits and Polaroid cameras. I thank you for listening to this presentation. I hope you enjoyed learning about technology's evolving role in protection. As you know, keeping people safe and businesses safe is a constantly evolving challenge, and ONTIC is proud to provide technology to physical security teams at Fortune 500 businesses across the country to help keep people safe. For more strategies, best practices, insights on trends, and lessons learned by myself and other physical security experts at ONTIC, check out our Center for Protective Intelligence at ontic.ai/center. And if you have any questions about what I covered today or how to keep your business safe, feel free to email me at fburton@ontic.ai. Thanks for your time today. Stay safe.